The man who wrote the most honest lines ever put to parchment about death spent 30 years terrified of it. Seneca, advisor to emperors, author of philosophy's greatest letters on mortality, wealthy beyond measure, influential beyond almost any other Roman alive. And every night before he closed his eyes, he was not sure he would open them again. Why would the man who told thousands how to accept death struggle to accept it himself? You have probably never had to face a firing squad, but you have probably lain awake at 3 in the morning thinking about something that felt just as final. A diagnosis, a relationship ending, a career collapse, your parents getting older, your own body beginning to fail you in small, quiet ways. The fear of death is not always about dying. Sometimes it is about realizing that time is moving and you are not ready. The ancient philosophers understood this better than anyone, not because they were fearless, but because they were afraid, and they worked through it, systematically, until fear became something else entirely. By the end of this video, you will know the exact method they used. Not the motivational version, the real one. The one Seneca used the night before he died. The one Marcus Aurelius practiced every single morning before anyone else in the palace was awake. Let us start with something most people get completely wrong. The Stoics did not overcome the fear of death by pretending death was not real. They did not minimize it. They did not rebrand it. They did not tell themselves everything happens for a reason. They did the opposite. They maximized it every single morning on purpose. Marcus Aurelius, Roman emperor, commander of 25 legions, wrote this in his private journal, a journal he never intended anyone to read, at roughly 4 in the morning, most mornings of his adult life. Think of yourself as dead. You have lived your life. Now take what is left and live it properly. He did not write this because he was morbid. He wrote it because he had discovered something that every philosopher before and after him arrived at through the same process of fear and discipline. The only way out of the fear is through it. And the only way through it is to face it so completely, so deliberately, every single day, that it loses the ability to surprise you. The Stoics called this practice memento mori. Remember that you will die. But the Latin phrase strips out the most important element, because it was not a reminder. It was a discipline, a daily confrontation with the one certainty that most people spend their entire lives avoiding. Here is what the confrontation actually looked like. Seneca wrote hundreds of letters. 124 of them survive, and in almost every letter, whether the topic is friendship, anger, time, poverty, or ambition, death appears. Not as a threat, not as a punishment, as a teacher. He wrote this to his friend Lucilius in approximately 65 AD, roughly 18 months before he was forced to open his own veins on the orders of Nero. Let us prepare our minds as if we had come to the very end of life. Let us postpone nothing. Let us balance life's books each day. He was not writing philosophy. He was writing survival instructions, because Seneca had already survived 2 near-death experiences before this letter. He had been exiled by Claudius to the island of Corsica, a form of social death for a Roman of his status. He had been recalled and forced to watch Nero, a boy he had helped raise, descend into paranoia and murder. He had been rich, and then stripped of half his wealth. He had been powerful, and then made irrelevant. He had died several times before his body caught up with the idea, and each time, the fear had changed, not disappeared, changed. Here is the mechanism, and this is the part that modern psychology has spent decades rediscovering from first principles. When you avoid thinking about death, It does not go away. It goes underground. It becomes anxiety without an object. Restlessness you cannot name. The feeling that something is wrong without being able to say what. The low-grade dread that lives at the bottom of Sunday evenings and 3 a.m. silences. Modern psychology calls this mortality salience. The researchers call it terror management theory. The Stoics simply called it what it was: the cost of avoidance. When you force yourself to think about death, specifically, completely, honestly, something unexpected happens. The anxiety finds its object. It becomes manageable. It becomes, with practice, information. Epictetus said this more bluntly than anyone in the tradition. He was a slave. He owned nothing. He controlled nothing. Not his freedom, not his body, not his future. His master, a man named Epaphroditus, once broke his leg as a demonstration of power. Epictetus reportedly said calmly, as it happened, "You are going to break it. It is broken. Did I not tell you? That is not performance. That is not bravado. That is what years of memento mori practice actually produces." The fear had not been eliminated. The threat had not changed. What had changed was the relationship between Epictetus and his own mortality. He had rehearsed it enough times in his mind, deliberately, that the actual experience, even physical pain, even humiliation, arrived as something already processed. He had already died in his imagination hundreds of times. The real version was just the last repetition of a very long rehearsal. But here is where the ancient method becomes genuinely strange and genuinely powerful. The Stoics discovered something that Seneca articulated in a letter so precise it reads like neuroscience, written 2,000 years too early. It is not death that men fear. It is the image of death. Read that again. It is not death. It is the image. What you're afraid of, what keeps you awake, what makes you flinch when someone mentions illness or loss or accident, is not the experience of dying. It is your mind's representation of the experience of dying. The picture your brain constructs and then reacts to as if it were real. And here is the critical insight. Your brain cannot distinguish between the imagined experience and the practiced experience. This is why actors cry real tears. This is why soldiers train in conditions designed to simulate combat. This is why athletes visualize races before running them. The rehearsed experience and the real experience share the same neural territory. The Stoics discovered this not through brain imaging, but through a much older technology. Paying extremely close attention to what happened inside their own minds when they practiced memento mori consistently. What they found was this. For the first week or two, the practice is disturbing. The mind resists it. The images are uncomfortable. The body responds with low-level alarm. But somewhere around the 3rd or 4th week of daily practice, the response shifts. The alarm does not come anymore, or it comes and passes quickly, like a cloud that no longer snags on anything. The image of death is no longer an ambush. It is a familiar visitor, and familiar visitors, no matter how serious, do not generate the same fight-or-flight response as strangers in the dark. Marcus Aurelius wrote this in Meditation's Morning Practice, Rome, approximately 165 AD. Alexander the Great and his stable boy, both dead. Scipio and Hannibal, both dead. Augustus and his palace, both gone. All the kings of Sparta, all the generals, all the physicians, all the philosophers. He was not writing a eulogy, he was writing calibration. He was reminding himself, the most powerful man on earth, the man who commanded whether other men lived or died, that the equalizer was already scheduled, that his power was not protection, that the elaborate architecture of Roman imperial life was, on a long enough timeline, dust. And he did this every morning, before his advisors arrived, before his generals needed his decisions, before the empire required anything from him. He went into the day already holding his own death lightly in his left hand. And what that did, what it does in anyone who practices it honestly, is change the weight of everything else. If you already know the worst thing, then the second worst thing, the third worst thing, the small humiliations and the medium failures and the large disappointments, they all shift. Not because they stop mattering, but because their proportion becomes accurate. There is one more layer. And this is the part that separates the ancient method from the modern versions you have probably encountered. The Stoics did not just practice dying, they practiced having already lived. There is a distinction. It is crucial. Memento Mori says, "You will die, and this is certain. Use this certainty to act now." But the deeper practice, the one Seneca arrived at toward the end of his life, the one you can read in the final letters, goes further. It asks not what you will lose when you die, but what you have already been given that you have not yet used. He wrote this roughly 2 years before his death. Think how many days have already been stolen from you without your knowledge. Review them carefully, and you will understand. Most of the life given to you has already passed. Most of your life has already happened. For most people, this sentence arrives as dread. For the person who has practiced memento mori, it arrives as urgency. Not the panicked urgency of someone who has just realized they are running out of time. The clean urgency of someone who knows exactly what the clock is doing and has decided, clearly, deliberately today, what to do about it. Seneca faced his final moment in 65 AD. Nero had sent soldiers to his house. The sentence was death. The method was his choice. By the accounts that survive, he was calmer than everyone around him. His wife tried to die with him. He consented to her wish, and they opened their veins together. Nero later sent soldiers to stop her, and she was bandaged against her will and survived. His friends were weeping. He asked them to remember their philosophy. He opened his veins, and because his body was old and the blood came slowly, he took poison as well, and then submerged himself in a steam bath to accelerate the end. Through all of it, the witnesses recorded, he kept talking, dictating. He had things he still wanted to say, not because he was not afraid, but because he had spent 30 years practicing this moment in his mind every morning until the practice and the moment became the same thing. He had already been here before, many times. The fear had not disappeared. It had been metabolized, converted, turned from something that paralyzed into something that clarified. The ancient philosophers did not lose their fear of death the way you lose your keys. It did not simply go missing one day and fail to return. They transformed it, slowly, deliberately, through a practice so consistent and so uncomfortable that most people never attempt it. They sat with the image until the image became familiar. They rehearsed the worst thing until the worst thing arrived as something already processed. They counted their remaining days not to grieve them, but to spend them. And on the other side of that practice, months and years and decades of it, they found something that is very difficult to describe and almost impossible to believe until you have touched it yourself. Not the absence of fear, not the absence of grief, not the performance of equanimity while terror hides beneath. Something simpler, something older, the feeling of having already decided what matters, the quiet that comes from knowing the end is coming, and having chosen anyway, every day, what to do with what remains. Marcus wrote it better than I can in a passage near the end of Meditations, which was, remember, a private journal he never intended anyone to read. Do not behave as if you had 10,000 years to live. The present moment always will have been. The present moment always will have been. Whatever you do today, whatever small or large thing you bring into the world, death cannot take the fact of it. The having happened cannot be unhappened. Not by emperors, not by time, not by the slow erosion of every physical thing. The Stoics were not fearless. They were something better. They were free. And now you know something that most people spend their entire lives running from. The fear is not the enemy. The avoidance is. Marcus Aurelius still had to get out of bed the next morning. He still had an empire to run, a dying friend to mourn, a son he was not sure would be worthy of his inheritance. But the question we have not answered yet is this: what happened to his son? What does the story of Marcus Aurelius and Commodus tell us about the one thing even the greatest Stoic could not control? That is the next video, and that story is darker than you expect.